Just dropping in. Tuning in to the message that wants to come through right now. Trying not to keep these two current events focused, but I think that it is important to have the anchor in where in the matrix time this is recorded from. I am in at the moment. It's now Monday, October 6th, 2025. And yeah, I wanted to kind of loop back on what I was talking about 2 episodes ago, which is this idea of linear time versus cyclic time, and how there's actually a new model of physics that supports this. The model is called the Topological Unified Field Theory, and it's not quite published yet, but it is available in preprint, and there's a very good beginner-friendly Medium article about that. I'll link in the show notes here, but the gist of it is that given 3 dimensions of space and 4 dimensions of time, and 2 other additional dimensions, this PhD candidate in Kansas has been able to prove and derive all of the mathematical constants and essentially everything that the standard model of physics, as well as everything in gravitation, with what to me looks like astounding precision and clarity. I am not a physicist. I'm not deeply trained enough in math. I did download and print out her paper, and I'm not getting very far, to be totally honest. It's way over my head, but it is really, really interesting, and it really supports, or it's very intuitive to anyone with a metaphysical or spiritual bent or proclivity, right? This idea that there's multiple different types of time, I think, is very and different dimensions of time, right, is very it's going to take some time, some linear matrix time, and probably also some cyclic time to really wrap my mind around. But one of the and the other interesting thing is that it makes use of the concept of imaginary time. So the in mathematics, the imaginary dimension, perpendicular to the dimension of real numbers, we have imaginary numbers, right? And it seems kind of wild, but it actually explains a lot of things in nature. And why not apply that to time too? And so then you get this time becomes a multifaceted tapestry where some things emerge and disappear, and some things appear in time in a way that traditional linear time just can't, it just can't keep up, right? No pun intended. But I do want to loop back, like I said in the beginning, and think about this concept of when you make time something that is only linear, or even predominantly linear, it you're always living at the end of it, right? And so this is why we, I think, always feel like we're living at the end of the world. Because we are. And it just has to continue to escalate and escalate and escalate until some sort of world actually ends. But it's not the end of the world, right? It's not like we're going to destroy our planet. We might make it uninhabitable, but the planet will still be here. I think I actually do want to take a detour here, because as I said, this idea of like, we're not going to destroy the planet. There is a very common and persistent idea or myth or story that comes up in channeled work and in a lot of non-ordinary states of consciousness and things that come to us from non-ordinary states of consciousness. That is this idea of another planet that existed between Mars and Jupiter that was destroyed and created the asteroid belt, right? This is something that's it's pretty common in like esoteric and alternative, right, literature and history. And it is something that we see in the raw material. So the raw material does expand on this idea. And there's, according to the raw material, there's a significant population on Earth at this time who were present at the time of this advanced civilization that fucked something up real bad and caused their planet to disintegrate. And I think whether or not that is objectively true within our own model, within our own system, when you look at time not as linear but as cyclical, you start to, the idea of past and future becomes very different. And also in quantum theory and in physics, it's, I mean, you can't ever prove what was in the past, right? You can only make guesses about it, and you can try to reconstruct it based on the present, but you can never know for sure. So yeah, to me, it's a very interesting story. I have spent a lot of time kind of sitting with it and thinking about it, and I'm still not sure whether it's true for me or not, but I do occasionally sit with it and allow it to be present. And I think this idea that so in the raw material, there are, he says that there are 3 predominant groups of souls incarnated on Earth right now. There's those who are from Earth, there's those who are from Mars, and there's those who are from Maldek, or this other planet that was destroyed, in addition to the essentially the legions of extraterrestrial wanderers, quote unquote, souls that are here at this time to carry out a specific mission or help up level the planet. And it's, yeah, I go back and forth on whether how that fits with what I believe. And like I said in the last episode, of looking at beliefs as tools rather than as something that needs to be literal fact, I think is a mindset shift that can be helpful for many people. You do have to be careful and make sure that it is truly helpful and it's not just delusional. And that's, like everything, discernment is key. We gotta have discernment. Oh, yeah, we're moving some energy. But yeah, this idea that some large proportion of the souls on Earth are living out this karma of, and in the raw material, which is a nonfiction work of channeled material, right? Just if you're just jumping in here and you're not familiar with the raw material, it's a body of channeled work from the early 1980s from a group in Kentucky. But and it's widely considered to be some of the most credible, I think, of all channeled materials because of the protocols that this group had in place. There are some things about their protocols that kind of make me question, and there are some things about the not just the information that was shared, but also the conditions that the group endured during the channeling, that you don't actually see all that much in other, at least in the other channeled work that I'm familiar with, which allegedly or admittedly is not that great. I haven't conducted a wide array of research here, but yeah, they underwent a lot of psychic attacks and very, very negative effects on their group when they channeled this group, this entity or this group of beings. And it was said that it was because there were people or beings out there trying to keep the truth suppressed. But it also kind of makes you wonder of like, right, which side are you really on? So yeah, again, skepticism, discernment, but also like openness and curiosity to these things. So when they found and just to back up, the raw from the raw material is or purports to be a sixth density social memory complex of souls that arose and evolved on Venus. Okay, so next door neighbors, essentially, just a little more evolved. And they have associations with various other groups within the solar system as well as outside. Notably the Council of Saturn, that's kind of like the ring pass knot that determines who and what gets into our solar system, and now in particular to the planet Earth, which is the only one at the moment harboring any life in the density ranges that we exist in. But after this tragedy, which I don't think we got a real clear answer on when it was, it would have been at least 12 to 24,000 years ago, but I'm thinking it's probably maybe more like 50 or 60,000 years ago, because we don't really see any reference to that in so for example, in the solar system model that the Essenes had, there was no planet there. But when after this happened and this planet was destroyed, these souls kind of just like found each other and glommed together and formed this like knot of anger and shame and yeah, really shame and negative self yeah, guilt, shame, regret, like all of these heavy emotions, and there was no way to release that karma because their planet, their stage, their home had been destroyed. And so it's taken many, many, thousands and thousands of years to rehabilitate them to the point where they can start incarnating again in a nearby system, i.e. Earth. So that's an interesting lens, right, to look at. And then there's also the other group from Mars, right? And that's exactly those. They're the ones that you'd think. Mars was, again, like in this esoteric, in this alternative view of deep time history. The advanced civilization on Mars was very war oriented, and they destroyed their atmosphere via nuclear war or something very similar to that. Burned it up, essentially. And I think that was in the same conflict as the other planet was destroyed. And so the part of this, we kind of see like Earth now. So there were, presumably there were souls that have evolved on Earth, and now we have souls from Mars, and we have souls from Maldek. Some other places refer to it as Tiamat or Tiamat. We've got already a melting pot on this planet, and very incompatible types of being. And then the growing numbers of wanderers, so souls from extra solar system, like I said, like people from elsewhere coming in. Yeah, so if you're, and I really encourage you to listen to these in a meditative state, and so you can kind of drop into the energy that I'm working, and start to see what I'm building and sharing here, because the frequency of the words are just a carrier signal. It's not the teaching that I'm sharing is not the words that I'm saying, right? It's the energetic world that I'm building. It's what I'm showing you. And so learning how to tap into that space will, I think, make this this exchange, this space that we're building together a lot more potent, a lot more powerful. So yeah, kind of looking at this concept or model of the Earth, right, as this place where souls from all over the place come in, and other sources. So one of my sources, one of my teachers, Elena Rose Dumaine, has channeled a lot of different star systems and like star lineages, and a lot of the information that she has is very different than the information that you get in mainstream starseed culture. I think that there's as with anything, there's always, the channel always affects the message. And so there are always distortions in the message, no matter who the channel is. But I think that a lot of what she shares about like, or who our cosmic neighbors are, who our homies are, is really, it resonates very much for me. So we're looking at, and I think many teachers see this, but Earth as a portal system, Earth as a gateway, right? Not just between civilizations within our own solar system, because at the moment, like I said earlier, there are no other civilizations within the like third density realm, or I don't think there's even any fourth, maybe some fifth, but as a like a melting pot, as a portal between many different places, right? Yeah, and so it's difficult to maintain peace and keep the balance in a place like this. And Earth herself has a protective coating on her that will not permit her to be destroyed in the same way as as Maldek was, but she's coded to protect herself, right? And that might be at our expense, and he frequently has been. Yeah, and looking at kind of what's going on right now in time, in the time matrix, which, and this is another thing that I learned from Elena, so giving full credit, and also like expounding upon it. But a time matrix is, and this is my own interpretation of it, but it's when we try to linearize the time that is maybe better explained by cycles. Time can be traversed in other ways than just going from point A to point B. And when we incarnate into this time matrix, we experience it as a point A to point B, right? Birth to death, birth to death. And we always think of it as a line, right? Of we start here and then we go forward and then we end there. And that's just how we experience it when we're here, when we're incarnated in, and not even, you don't have to excarnate to experience, cyclic time and break out of the time matrix. You just have to unplug from the calendar and these ideas of endings and beginnings being absolutes. Yeah, right now in the time matrix is such a difficult place to be because we keep going past the end of time, right? And it feels like it can never get worse, and then it gets worse, and then it can't possibly get any worse, and then it gets even worse. But I think what we're getting to here, and this is something that other authors have kind of, so another author that is influential in this, in this concept space, is Jose Arguelles, 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 I think, and his work with the Mayan calendar, and his body of work, and I haven't actually revisited it in a while. I've kind of read about it and then left it alone, and now I'm thinking about it again. But yeah, he talks about like transcending past history, right? Overcoming history, like the end of history at some point will happen. And I think that makes sense in context of this new topological unified field theory, where like time exists in these loops and in these cycles. Like I think I described it in episode 1, or in the first edition of this series, as being like, right now the image that I'm seeing is one of like a spirograph, right? Like if you had one of those when you were a kid, like, you have like the gear, like the big circular gear, and then the smaller circular gears, and then you put your pen in them, and when you draw and you trace the gear around, and it makes these flowers. Like that, but with multiple different sizes, and the loops are like the loops and twists and turns are all relative to like the planetary cycles and the solar system cycles, the precession of the equinoxes, things like that, all kind of contribute to time actually being more like a flower, or more like a ball of yarn that expands and contracts, than a ruler or a measuring tape, right? And it's really all of these bastards that are just coming in and trying to like stick a nail in the beginning and the end of the measuring tape of quote unquote history, that are the ones causing the problems. And I firmly believe that we are just watching them burn themselves out right now. But we also have to participate in that burning out process. In last night's episode, I talked about how, and I don't think I used this word, but how to become unfuckwithable. And this is like, we're looking at like Greta Thunberg, right? Right now, 2 days ago, she was released from the Israeli captivity, quote unquote Israeli occupation captivity, after having been kidnapped by after being on board this flotilla of 45 ships trying to break the siege on Gaza, bringing humanitarian aid into a part of the world that's experiencing genocide. And you get the feeling, this is the second time she's been arrested doing this, and you get the feeling that she's going to go out and she's going to get on another boat, right, with more people. And that's the feeling that I get from a lot of these people, like, and this is just what has to happen. We have to stop the people who are harming each other the most, because, like I described in the previous episode, they are not, they don't know what they do. They don't know what they're doing. There was a thread today that was just like, we can just explain so much of everything what's going on in the world by just assuming that everybody's actually 12. Like, I want to eat burgers and fries for dinner every night. Okay, yeah, that makes sense, buddy, because you're 12. Like, why don't we just send cops in to kill all the people that don't have homes? Okay, buddy, that makes sense to you because you're 12, right? Like, and I don't think all of them are 12. Like, I think that some of the leaders are actually more like 4 or 5, maybe 7, to be generous. But we're not dealing with adults, right? We're not dealing with adults, and this is why we need to work on upleveling our worldview and transcending some of these models of governance that we have right now. The problem with democracy is that if everybody's an idiot, they're not going to vote for the thing that is in everybody's best interest. You see, like, people with the with a pluralistic worldview where everybody is worthy of a seat at the table. You see them inviting Nazis to the table, right? And when you have a table with one Nazi at it, you have a table of Nazis, right? We don't understand the paradox of tolerance. And so, we all need to get our, and if you're listening to this, you're probably already well on the way, but we all need to get up level our worldviews to the point where we are, where we can sit with this paradox and we can say yes, and like, yes, everybody deserves a voice, and we have to exclude people we have to exclude people whose voice will drown out the others, right? Any bartender knows this. Like, if you allow one Nazi at your bar, you're a Nazi bar, right? You can't have people who are intolerant in a tolerant society. So I hope that we're learning that lesson right now on the grand scale, because shit is bad right now. Like, shit is real bad. But I think that we are, I have to believe, and again, this goes back to, are your beliefs absolutely true, or are they more useful? Using beliefs as tools, I have to believe that we are witnessing the extinction gasps of a dying patriarchal model, hell-bent on nailing time to a ruler and making it be straight, making it point in a direction instead of loop back on itself. And with that, we are going to also see the end of the service to self polarity having a foothold on Earth. I think there is also a timeline where service to other would get burned out on Earth, and I hope that that's not the way we go, because service to self is much more destructive and service to other is much more nurturing. But yeah, we're at this kind of fork in the timeline, and really, if you have a service to other polarity, we have to be stepping up and we have to be serving others. Like, we have to be serving others in order to have a service to other polarity. And if that language is unfamiliar to you, you haven't read the raw material, one of the best examples of this polarity, and this is a deep cut, is if you are a Star Trek fan, the mirror universe that they occasionally find themselves in. I think it occurs in, like, it starts even in the original series, and I think there's a couple episodes maybe in Next Generation where they find themselves in mirror universe. But Star Trek Discovery has like entire seasons that are based in the mirror universe. And in the mirror universe, it's a service to self polarity. There's what they call the Terran Empire, which is the counterpart of the United Federation of Planets, which is all just this like backstabbing and dominated universe where people fight it out, and there's always one supreme leader that demands ultimate, like, complete authority, complete submission, and at every turn you're just like expecting to get stabbed in the back, right? That's service to self, right? There's one person at the top that makes all the decisions. Everybody else down the chain is obeying and also looking for every opportunity that they can find in order to move up the ladder, right? Whereas in a service to self, and you can also think of that as like patriarchy, right? The Roman Empire, like capitalism, right? And then service to other is like the United Federation of Planets. We have fully automated luxury space communism, right? Like everybody's needs are met. Like, yeah, there's conflict, but it's dealt with in a healthy manner, and everybody has inherent worth. Everybody is provided for, and this is, you see this in matriarchal societies and in lots of indigenous societies, and frankly everywhere before colonization came and hit you. So yeah, the idea here is to bring our own actions into alignment with the polarity that we choose. And according to Ra, in order to, it's much easier to polarize sufficiently in service to other polarity, because you just have to hit slightly above 50%. I think 51% of your actions need to be service to other, because obviously you have to take care of yourself, right? But in service to self polarity, it has to be over 90% of your actions. You have to be like completely self-serving, and it's that middle that most people are stuck in. That middle of being like 70 to 80% self-serving, and then like 20 to 30% other serving. That is kind of why we're stuck in this this like in between place here on Earth right now. Just kind of feeling into what wants to come through on that topic right now. Yeah. So when you are I'm just looking at the landscape that I painted here. I had to open my eyes in order to check the time on the recording, and also my partner is back, and so I'm kind of keeping an ear out for him to be done putting the baby down. But the goal here, right, if you're listening to my content, if you're drawn to my work, you're already service to other polarity, right? You want the world to be a better place for everyone. Like, you're not trying to stab people in the back and move yourself up three rungs on the ladder. Like, that doesn't interest you. And so I think a lot of us struggle with, what do we do in between putting ourselves on the boat, throwing ourselves in the front line, spending time in Israeli prisons being tortured, right, in order to make a point. And there's another reason why things are going to have to escalate a little bit in order to actually solve the problem. And that's because that entity is service to self oriented, and they don't care about our posturing. But for everybody else, it matters whether or not you're violent, or just like the perception of violence. But we have this chasm, I think, between what can I do and admiring what they're doing, right? Watching the people on the boats, and hoping they make it, and sharing fundraisers, donating to fundraisers, all of these things. But like, what can you also do at home, right? If you can't join, or you can't travel, you can't go physically be a part of it because you have more mundane commitments like parenting, or mostly just parenting. Let's be honest, because fuck your job, right? Fuck a bunch of capitalism. That whole system needs to be like, I'm not saying that we can't have jobs and money. Like, money's a little bit questionable, and jobs need to like the concepts need to change, the model needs to change, but um, the what you're doing on a daily basis should be service to other, right? It needs to be aligned. So if your job is not aligned with your your deepest values, you're gonna struggle with integration. Um, so, not saying that it's easy, right? It's not. It's yeah, like we all have had to survive in capitalism for so long that it's so ingrained in our systems. But we're not going to be able to survive in it for much longer, right? Because we keep reaching, we're in the end times, we keep reaching the logical end of linearizing history. So, yeah, I think looking closer to home, looking at ways that you can extend that service to others within your own communities, within your own homes, right? I mean, um, that's a very that's a fundament like a foundational movement, but then also doing the deep inner work, like I talked about last time in the last episode about reconciling, especially for white people, especially for men, especially for people with able bodies, etc., intersectional privileges, um, to really do the deconditioning work that tells us that our proximity to the one in the service to self polarity power seat will somehow save us, right? We need to let go of that. And that is deep, deep internal work, that we talked about last time, and we'll talk about much, much more in the future, but I'm going to leave that for now. Yeah, just feeling into where this is going, and how to wrap this up, because we're getting close to the natural conclusion of it. And I think, yeah, just sitting with this, these notions of like service to self versus service to other. You can read the raw material if that is of interest to you. It's pretty long and dense. It's not the easiest read, I'm going to be honest. It's like 5 books long. There's a lot of stuff in it. So I'm not going to be able to tell you whether it's worth it to read it for yourself. But spending time thinking about this idea of being a wanderer or being a starseed, right? And having spent time in other locations and currently being on Earth, where we are in this incarnational process within this time matrix, and deciding whether the belief that you came here for a reason, right here, right now, is useful to you. And is it useful to you to make you feel special, to make you feel better than other people? Because if that's true, then you're back on the service to self polarity, or you're wandering off the path, right? It's not about being special, it's about being useful, and about being a part of the change of frequency on the planet right now. I will have a lot more to say about star seeds and like that whole thing. And I'll probably make some like camera facing YouTube videos about that as well, because I know these hour-long episodes, they're really easy for me to create, but they're not they're not super accessible to the algorithm, at least. You kind of have to already be in my orbit to know about these and to have the time and the space to sit down with me. So yeah, I think that's the spot where this one's going to end. I'm just watching this kind of I'm watching this like this astral space that we're co-creating here together, and just looking and seeing, just, yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you for being here, and I will, yeah, I'll talk to you next time. Good night and good luck.